Sports betting in Ohio officially starts today. Hear from the business owners who hope to cash in from the change. Another change in the new year, minimum wage is going up. Why advocates say it's not enough. And we talk one-on-one with Governor Mike DeWine about his plans for the new year and his new term. Thank you so much for joining us here on Face the State. I'm Tracy Townsend. Happy New Year. We do want to take a few minutes this morning to look back at 2022. It was a year of controversial changes in Ohio. Just months into 2022, a controversial gun bill divided the state. In the end, the governor signed constitutional carry into law.
Today starts a major change for gun ownership in our state. Ohio will join nearly 24 other states in allowing people to carry concealed firearms without a license.
Really, you gonna sign this into law? When I got the call, I was just overwhelmed.
Gun owners are responsible, and so now we have another chance to prove that we're responsible as well.
The gun control debate spilled into Ohio classrooms.
Ohio is tackling the issue of school shootings with a controversial new law. Governor Mike DeWine says he will allow districts to arm teachers and staff.
This is permissible. There might only be one. There might be 5. There might be 10 school districts that do this. There might be a lot more. But your school district doesn't have to do this. We're not saying that a teacher has to carry a gun. Nobody's saying that.
It may be that the police and FOP and some folks officially say we don't like this, but I think there's a real disagreement. And so I think the answer is there can be people who are capable of protecting children in this crisis situation.
But we feel that this is the most comprehensive approach to take in order to maximize the security for everyone involved with our school district.
Controversial school issues didn't stop there.
The State Board of Education also approved a measure yesterday that involves students who identify as LGBTQ+. Also, Title IX. This measure says sports teams should be based on biological sex, not gender identity.
That approval came after days and days of passionate public testimony.
I beg you, please vote no to these anti-trans resolutions. It means everything to me, my husband, and my 3 children.
We just want to be left alone to live our lives, but you stole that from us.
For days, protesters took to the streets in Columbus and across the country after the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. For Ohio, that meant a strict ban went into effect.
The focus now shifts from those so-called trigger laws to the so-called heartbeat law that was signed by Governor Mike DeWine in 2019. This morning, Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost signed this motion to essentially start enforcing that. It hasn't been enforced since it was signed in 2019 because of a federal judge's order.
But the ban did not last.
The judge has decided to permanently block our state's near total ban on abortion. This case started as a temporary hold on Ohio's heartbeat law, which was challenged by the ACLU.
Ohio also hit the national spotlight during the January 6th hearings. Stephen Ayers of Ohio, who pleaded guilty to disorderly conduct at the Capitol, testified. He talked about what motivated him to go to Washington, D.C. that day.
Basically, the president, got everybody riled up, told everybody to head on down. So we basically were just following what he said.
The November election of 2022 will be one to remember. The tight U.S. Senate race taking center stage. J.D. Vance is now one of Ohio's 2 U.S. senators.
I will never forget where I came from, and I will never forget the great people of Ohio. Thank you for this honor to serve you. I'll fight for you every day.
It's a historic day for the Buckeye State and a crucial moment of investment into the future of Ohio and America. History being made in our state as Intel breaks ground right here in Lincoln County.
The future of the chip industry is going to be made in America.
Intel put Ohio on the map in 2022. President Biden visiting for the official groundbreaking. It will still be years before the plants are complete and workers start making semiconductors. While COVID-19 still spread in our state, other viruses took over the headlines.
The Ohio Department of Health believes monkeypox has made its way right here to our state.
Ohio has at least one case of the measles. The state's top doc confirmed it yesterday. The return of measles leading to a push for protection.
I'm really concerned about those who are unvaccinated.
And concerns being shared by entities including the World Health Organization and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, with warnings in the Journal of the American Medical Association, JAMA, that substantial progress toward eliminating measles worldwide was really set back during the COVID-19 pandemic. Experts say the setback put millions of children at risk for that highly contagious disease. And they also remind us that measles is transmissible, so much so that it's necessary to have between 89 to 94% vaccination coverage to achieve herd immunity. All right, let's now take a look at 2023 to find out which moves to watch for at the State House. We talked with Professor Herb Asher with the Ohio State University Department of Political Science and also Terry Casey, a Republican strategist. Both say the budget process is number one. The decisions made will impact each and every one of us.
The biggest news at the State House is the fact that we're getting ready to enter the budget cycle, which is a big portion of their work, with an $80 or $90 billion budget. But the good news for Ohio is that they're AAA bond rated. The rainy day fund is full and taken care of, and the state of Ohio still has some good chunks, as a lot of local governments do, of COVID money to be spending. So the good news is there's money there as opposed to the alternative of cutting and cutting and cutting. But figuring out how to put that budget together is a major challenge because there's so many different things that state government does, whether it's elementary, high school education, colleges, Medicaid, healthcare, highways, roads, et cetera.
Watch the budget process and what kinds of things get put into the budget. You know, it's one thing to provide for appropriations for state programs and policies. What other kind of language might be put into the budget that might restrict or change things? So, what will they be doing with respect to the funding of primary and secondary education? And what will this conservative legislature do in terms of, let's say, expanding funding for charter schools?
And there are major issues they say you should be watching to develop here at home in our state and out of Washington, D.C. this year.
Let's look at what they do with respect to guns, and let's see what they do with respect to abortion, and let's see what they do with respect to gays, and let's see what they do with respect to trans children and trans students and all of that. And I'll put those all together because it's probably the case that there'll be a number of members of the Ohio House who will be looking to, impose their own values on these issues, and they may have the votes to do that. I think another issue to be looking at is what's done with respect to voting reform.
There's always issues, and some of them are unpredictable. I mean, one of the little issues that Congress is going to have to deal with is this thing called cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, because it's kind of been operating unregulated and nobody's been watching it and nobody's minding the store. But yet it looks like a lot of people are going to lose billions of dollars. And somewhat what triggered the 2008 financial crisis could be something that if Bitcoin and or some other fiscal things fall apart, they're going to say, was Congress paying attention? Did we have proper regulations to protect consumers and make sure that people aren't stealing money or misusing it? So there's a lot of issues that'll come up. Some of them we don't know about. And of course, in the international area, the Ukraine and what happens in Europe, because they've got a huge energy crisis there as they go into the winter, with a lot of Russian oil and gas cut off or reduced. So there's big international issues, including China, but a lot of it it's helpful to, the old phrase, follow the money, because money and finances, Congress can pass acts, but they can't override the rules of economics and the rules of physics.
10 TV's Kevin Landers talked with Governor Mike DeWine one-on-one about several of those issues. Here's what DeWine says are his top priorities in the new year.
Governor Mike DeWine says his last term in office will focus on three main issues.
What do you think your single most important mission will be in the next 4 years for Ohioans?
I think we continue to focus on jobs, we continue to focus on education and mental health.
Ohio is spending $85 million to encourage people to stay in the field of mental health. Governor DeWine admits one of the biggest issues facing the profession involves paying health professionals what they're worth.
Are you going to go after insurance companies to pressure them to uphold to the parity law?
We're going to do everything we can to enforce the parity law in the state of Ohio. The way it works is the majority of these policies do not come under the jurisdiction of the state of Ohio. But in those cases where they do, we're going to continue to do everything that we can.
Governor DeWine has expressed concerns about violent crime in the state. I asked him about Columbus's attempt to pass strict gun laws as the state attempts to stop them.
This is a city saying, here's a solution, and the state's saying, no, you can't do that. People are wondering.
Look, courts are going to decide that. And again, what is different about that is that we have a Second Amendment. The courts will tell us ultimately whether or not Columbus is right or whether the state of Ohio is right.
The next topic we discussed was abortion. I asked him if he supports exceptions. Governor DeWine didn't say he would, but didn't say he wouldn't.
As the legislature considers what to put in this abortion bill, it's very important. We try to save as many lives as we can, but at the same time, we have something that's sustainable and that does not get overridden when it goes on the ballot. That balance has to be achieved, and I hope it can be achieved in a civil way where we don't tear the state apart.
On the issue of flavored tobacco sales, the governor indicated he may veto a bill that would prevent cities like Columbus from outlawing flavored tobacco.
What Columbus did certainly is consistent with saving lives and saving taxpayers a lot of money.
And when it comes to the death penalty, DeWine says it remains off the table, citing threats by drug companies who don't want the state using medicines to take people's lives.
There's been no executions since I became governor. I don't anticipate we will see any executions as long as I'm governor of the state.
Kevin Landers, 10 TV News.
And you can see more of Kevin's one-on-one with Governor DeWine by going to the Face the State tab at 10tv.com. All right, it's being called a game changer. Sports betting is legal in Ohio right now. We'll take a look at how the mom and pop shops and the big businesses are planning to cash in. And Ohio is doing its part to help New York. You'll hear from the ODOT workers who are clearing the streets of Buffalo. Welcome back. Right now, sports gambling is legal across Ohio. It is a major game changer for the industry. Bars, casinos, and sporting events getting ready for an influx of customers. Scioto Downs, for example, is one of many local spots that will start accepting sports wagers today, January 1st. There are safeguards in place to make sure people who are betting are legally able to do that.
The app itself, in order to ensure that a guest is 21, there's a lengthy process that you have to fill out. In order to download the app, you have to provide a copy of your driver's license. So there are some safe ways in place to prevent minors from going and gambling. And that's no exception at the property.
Scioto Downs not alone in joining in on all of the sports betting. 10 TV's Clay Gordon looked into just how many businesses applied to get a license and how sports reporting may now look and sound a little different.
We're bringing the most places to bet in Ohio.
Coming to Ohio.
We've seen the commercials. The sports books are ready, and so are the bars.
It looks like an ATM.
Varsity Club's kiosk will be installed near the front door in mid-January. Not in time, though, for the Buckeyes' playoff run.
Tell me about the foot traffic here on a typical game weekend. What's it looking like?
Well, you can imagine when you have 100,000 people across the street that we'll get thousands of people coming through here.
Do you think people will stay at the booth and use the phone, or do you think they'll walk up?
I think it's kind of like a relic or a nostalgia to get a ticket. The individual will go up, put money in the kiosk, place their bet, get a ticket, and then if they win, they'll cash the ticket in at the bar.
The Ohio Lottery is in charge of approving sports gaming hosts. So far, they've approved nearly 1,500 sites across the state.
You will be able to place a bet at bars, sporting events, casinos, and even grocery stores in some areas. And your viewing and listening experience will be different starting next week.
Well, what we haven't been doing before is actually aligning ourselves with a sports book, because legally we couldn't do it. Now we can.
10 TV's radio partner, 97.1 The Fan, is incorporating spreads into each show.
I think people want us to do their homework for them. So every show on The Fan will be affiliated with a different sports book that will be touting what they offer, their different parlays, their different boosts, what the odds are on this gambling site.
How much of a cut do you guys get versus how much does the state get?
The state gets most of it, just like the lottery. It's better than the lottery, which is good, but you know, it's a small percentage. But again, I think it'll add to the experience.
A new experience in the new year. In Columbus, Clay Gordon, 10 TV News.
All right, where will sports gambling revenue go? According to House Bill 29, tens of millions of dollars are expected to be raised. Ohio's Department of Taxation says 98% of the net revenue will go to funding for interscholastic athletics, other extracurricular activities for children, and problem gambling resources. And not everyone is excited about this expansion of sports betting. The Problem Gambling Network of Ohio says people need to mitigate the risks of addiction. There's a statewide campaign in place to do just that.
We know that in Ohio, when there's more opportunities to gamble, more Ohioans will gamble, and more Ohioans will then develop problems. So we have really strong data that supports that, and it's also consistent with what we've seen from other states. So recognizing that if you expand access to something, more people will play and more people will have problems, then it's equally important to have those protections in place to help mitigate some of those losses. Mitigate some of those challenges. So one of those pieces is our statewide campaign, If You Gamble, Get Set Before You Bet, which provides tips and resources for those that are early to gambling or may have started to really assess their relationship with gambling and make sure that all those pieces are in place.
And how do you know if you have a problem? Here are some warning signs.
The first tip is just really assessing whether or not it's still fun. And if you're gambling and you're realizing, gosh, this isn't really fun anymore, I just can't seem to stop, that's a big sign. Also, really being mindful of what those loved ones are saying, because a lot of times the gambler themselves may not recognize that they're having a problem, and that's where it's so important for those loved ones to intervene. So paying attention to being really preoccupied with gambling, that seems to be the only thing they talk about, the only thing that they do, can be another tip.
And if you or a loved one has a gambling problem or any of those signs you just heard, call the hotline on your screen, 1-800-589-9966. Another change is kicking in statewide today. Minimum wage now a little higher. It's up 80 cents an hour to $10.10 an hour. For tipped workers, minimum wage is now $5.05 an hour. This is to adjust for inflation. Those with Policy Matters Ohio say while this isn't the $15 an hour wage that they'd like to see, it is a step in the right direction.
This is going to help Ohioans of all backgrounds. 289,000 women and 179,000 men will benefit from this policy. Workers who are Black, white, Latino, Asian, and other races will all benefit. This is something that disproportionately helps workers who are the most marginalized and have the lowest wages right now. So it's a really important step. This really reflects the wisdom of Ohio voters. Back in 2006, they voted to pass this index when they raised Ohio's minimum wage. So we need a higher wage, but this is a really important safeguard that protects folks from losing that buying power due to high inflation this year.
Right now, ODOT crews are helping clear the roads in New York. Crews left earlier Thursday morning for Buffalo. Governor Mike DeWine ordered a convoy of 28 workers to spend 6 days helping. ODOT also sent 12 dump trucks and 4 pickup trucks with workers. These crews will work 12-hour days until Tuesday, and they tell us it's all part of the job.
It's hard, but we got very understanding families, but it's tough being away from the kids. But they realize what we do for a living, and they know the need that Buffalo's going through right now. So any help that we can give them, because we know in any situation like this, help is always needed and wanted from who's ever willing to volunteer.
We've never done anything like this before, at least not in the 10 years that I've been here. So it could be interesting, to say the least. Could be fun, could be scary. I guess we'll see when we get out there.
And the workers are coming from Akron, New Philadelphia, and Cleveland. ODOT says there are still enough workers and equipment to take care of Ohio if the need arises while the crews are there. More than $1.6 billion in federal funding is going to improve the Brent Spence Bridge. The extra funding means the big corridor project can move forward. It's something that's been in the works for almost 2 decades. The bridge connects Ohio and Kentucky, and it's one of the most heavily traveled bridges in the nation. Groundbreaking is expected late this year. Congresswoman Joyce Beatty is ready for another term. Hear the tribute she paid to her late husband during her swearing-in ceremony this week.
The duties of the office.
The duties of the office.
On which I am about to enter.
On which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
This week, Ohio Congresswoman Joyce Beatty was sworn in for her 6th term in the U.S. House of Representatives. She was sworn in next to her grandchildren. Beatty is the voice for the 3rd Congressional District of Ohio. At the ceremony, the Congresswoman took time to honor her late husband.
You never get over it, but you get through it. You get through it because I grew up in a family of love and faith and fearlessness. So I stand here today and say, thank you, Otto Beatty Jr. And thank you to my grandbabies, Beatty legacies. Beatty Blunt legacies.
The Congresswoman says she's ready to get back to advancing the power of diversity and inclusion in our state. Today is the last day of Kwanzaa. If you're not familiar, Kwanzaa is a 7-day celebration of African culture observed every year from December 26th through January 1st. Unlike many other winter holidays, Kwanzaa isn't tied to any single religion. It's meant to include people of all religions, so if you observe Christmas or Hanukkah, you can also celebrate Kwanzaa. Each of the 7 days of Kwanzaa is associated with a principle.
Starting with Umoja, which is tonight, Kujichagulia, self-determination, Ujima, which is collective work and responsibility, Ujamaa, which is cooperative economics, Nia, purpose, Kuumba, creativity, making things better than what we found it, and lastly, Imani, faith in our community.
The Ohio History Connection put on several events this week to celebrate Kwanzaa. There's nothing scheduled for tonight. Families, though, are encouraged to gather at home and enjoy each other. We certainly hope you will do that. We again wish you a happy new year, and thank you for joining us here today.